Hey guys, what's up? Kyle from Cause3D. And it dawned on me that we haven't done a useful tools video yet that I use on a day-to-day basis when I'm actually finishing 3D prints that come off the print bed and get onto the bench. So today we're going to go over several different tools that are absolute musts if you're going to be doing this. Let's get to it. So the first thing I would run out and grab is some sort of an X-Acto knife. Now I've got one here that I use on a daily basis and I absolutely love this one. But I also have extra blades sitting around, always within arm's reach, just so I can trim pieces. If you have a piece come off the bed that needs a little bit of trimming, no problem, you've got your X-Acto knife. Always keep a sharp blade in it. All right, so the next thing that you're gonna need is some sandpaper. Now, I wouldn't run out and just buy the cheapest possible sandpaper that you can buy because there is a quality difference when you're using it. How long it lasts and how good of a finish you end up with. So I'm rather partial to the 3M brand. It's got a nice non-skid backing to it almost. It's pretty good stuff and I've had a lot of success with this. You're gonna definitely need to start with something close to an 80 grit so that you can really get in there on your parts and get those print lines knocked down quickly. And you can then follow it up with something like a 150, 140, somewhere in that area, and then finalize it with a 240 grit on most everything that you do. Now there are most of the times, if I'm doing a bigger project, I actually use a random orbit sander. And I use the 80, 150, 240 in that as well. And I went out and bought a cordless Bauer random orbit sander. And I have to say, I've got a couple of these actually, so I don't even have to change out grits of sandpaper. And I absolutely love these. The only drawback with the cordless is that you cannot adjust the speed on them. So I also have a corded one if I'm doing like working right now on a Darth Vader's helmet dome. I don't want to get there and bear down on it and accidentally get too much material moved to where I've got pockets all throughout the dome. So I dial my speed way back and take my time, and then I finish with hand sanding. So on the same token of sanding, I found these sanding sticks on Amazon. And these things are fantastic. Now, you're not gonna do a huge project with it, but if you've got a very odd shape of a piece that you need to get into, for example, these vents on the back piece of a helmet, they make them in different grits, but you can actually, I would trim this normally, but you can actually get in there and sand with a flat surface rather than trying to get in there with your finger, a curved surface with some sandpaper. But those sanding sticks really come in handy a lot of the times when I'm working on projects. In the same vein of that is the files that I use. I've got all kinds of different files and they're the same thing. When you get into a tight to reach space, it's wonderful to be able to come in with a file and actually be able to flatten out a surface quickly that you couldn't normally get to, or perhaps again, if you're using a piece of sandpaper, you're not getting a totally flush sand with it as to where you do with a file. Another couple tools that I have on hand at all times that I keep very sharp are just these really cheap chisels, and they come in great handy when you're trying to get into an area to remove a little bit of material. Just couldn't do most of what I do without these chisels as well. So I want to talk about cabinet scrapers just briefly. This isn't something that you have to have, but the more 3D printing that you do, you might want to invest into a set of these. And what they are, they have a diamond tipped edge along all four corners of this one in particular. And what you can do is you can actually, with different grits on it, you can actually get in there and remove material with this edge. And they leave behind a very, very nice finish when you're done. Now, I use these when I want to remove a lot of material quickly. This isn't something that I would typically use just to remove a little bit that sandpaper would do. But these really do come in handy to get some material off quick. So of course, side snips, they come in handy all the time as well. Usually when removing supports and so forth. Now, if you order something from us, typically I've already gone through that cleanup process where you won't need these, but they still do come in handy a lot of the times. I also use ice picks, scribes, whatever these are called anymore. I use these a lot, especially if I have to pry out in small areas to get support material out or anything like that. But these really come in handy a lot as well. Bondo glazing. Bondo glazing is extremely handy, especially if you're going to be doing large projects. It comes in handy great on small projects as well, but your spot putty, your Bondo spot putty and glazing really comes in handy. And a lot of times if you are working on a large project like this, I've gone in and I've already started filling in some gaps in some areas, and then you hit it with your sandpaper, but it just speeds up the process because most of the time you're looking more to fill the layer lines rather than sanding out the layer lines. If you sand out the layer lines too much, you'll get on in past the walls into the infill, and you've got a whole new problem with that. But rubber gloves, when you're applying it with your fingers, highly recommend using that. Another thing that you can do, you can use a credit card edge to apply it as well. Or you can go out and buy these super fancy applicators for Bondo that you use on bodywork. And I go through these a lot as well, but definitely got to get your spot putty. So wrapping up here, let's talk about some super glues and epoxies. And my personal preference on the super glue is the cheapest stuff that I can find at my local Harbor Freight. I do not like super glue gel. I do use liquid. It's typically a little messier, but it actually joins better from my experience. And on top of using the super glue, I also use Instaset. The stuff that I use is made by Bob Smith Industries. This stuff is great. You glue your part, you hold it for a couple seconds, and then you follow it up with some Instaset, and it instantly sets your super glue. Now, I put them in, my Instaset goes in these little applicator bottles so that I'm not spraying it all over my project. I can really get into the small parts of what I am working on, and I keep from spraying it on. If I'm going to glue other parts next to it, I don't have some kicker or some Instaset on there already, so I can focus on just the small areas. As far as epoxy goes, I mean, the JB Weld clear weld epoxy is two-part epoxy is probably my favorite that I've used, just because it does come in a larger container. I just recently had to buy this. The same amount that I had prior to this, I worked off of for about 6 years probably. So this stuff does last a very long time, as long as it doesn't dry out and you continue to use it. So for a bonus tool today, this is a plastic joiner. It's a plastic welder. These are $20 on Amazon. And you're not going to be able to see this wire that comes with it, but it's basically just a wavy wire. What it does is you install this into the tip of the gun, and then when you pull the trigger, it sends an electric current through this, and it comes in great handy when you're having to weld two pieces together. And when it if I can get a hold of this piece, you click your gun on, you push it in, it goes in to the walls, you pull it out. When you pull it out, it leaves the wire behind, and then you go back and you just trim the pieces that were sticking up that go into the tip of the gun. And what you can do is permanently weld, which this piece is a little rough, but you'll get the idea. But you can permanently weld your 3D prints together while you're in the assembly process for, let's say, something large like this part of this Vader chest plate that's going to go on a display with our Vader helmet. Well, I hope this video helps out a little bit. I've just gone over some things that I use every single day that I'm out here in the shop working on 3D printed projects. I know I've missed some stuff that I probably pick up and put down multiple times in a build, but these are kind of the main ones that you need just to get started. And you don't even need all of this stuff to get started. It's just good to slowly build up your inventory of tools and useful items that you can use. So make sure that you guys like and subscribe. We really appreciate that. It helps us out on making more content for our videos here. And make sure you leave a comment down in the comment section on something else that we maybe should touch on. And we'll see you in the next video.